Hey guys, and welcome to another video. Today, I want to talk about something kind of special that happened yesterday, which was the sort of unofficial pre-launch for Guild Wars 2 in China. There's been a lot of news about this over the past 6 months or so. I've even heard that devs over on our side have been spending time working on the development of the Chinese launch, and now that's finally gone through, again, sort of, we may see their focus redouble back to our side in the West. But I did want to talk about the release because it's had some interesting controversies about it, and generally whether I think this affects us from this day forwards. The answer to that really is I think it's going to have no impact at all on us. Everything about the Chinese client is separate. I had a conversation with someone yesterday while we were running world bosses where he was saying, oh man, this could affect the TP in interesting ways. It really won't. The games are completely isolated, and so whatever you learn about the Chinese client is really just for speculators' joy and little more. You cannot mail people on the Chinese client. You cannot, like, you might presume that now you could go to server selection and maybe guess not over between NA and EU, but maybe you could go to China as well. That's not true. You could actually do that in the first game also. They had many different regions. They had loads of different servers for, they had like an Asian subsection, and then you could go to, I believe Korea was in there, China was definitely in there, and there was a third one as well. And usually all of those servers were dead, frankly. But it's interesting to me that it was once all combined and now it's not at all. I've heard many different reasons for this. One of the big ones has been, oh, the great Chinese firewall is preventing us from playing together. But I'm not sure whether that's true. I think the most likely reason, perhaps it is true, but the most likely is that the in-game environment over there is completely different. Imagine you could share the trading post. The Chinese client has only just come out. It doesn't have any living world content. So we could be selling players future living world stuff, like future living world rewards. What about all the Black Lion skins that they've slowly trickled into the game? What about the multiple series of minis? None of these exist yet on the Chinese version of the game. And it's a two-way street. They have items, unique, specific items over there that do not exist in our version of the game. For example, and this is something I'll come back to in a second, they have a precursor box. They have a box you can double-click to earn a precursor at any moment. And can you imagine Chinese players actually selling those to us over in our regions? It just doesn't work. You can't mail people, you can't whisper people, they're different games. So I talked just now about how the launch isn't the real launch. Basically, they're in head start. Do you guys remember how it launched for us? We had a 3-day head start before the game opened up to everyone else. That head start was only available to people who pre-ordered Guild Wars 2. And there was an upper cap on the amount of people who could pre-order Guild Wars 2 at 1 million. You guys will also remember that during this time there was insane skill, like the servers could not handle a damn thing, and it was a big mess for a long while. I particularly myself remember staying up all night, because release was like in the middle of the night, obviously for me, and then we couldn't play the game after reserving our character names, and me desperately trying to take a nap so I could catch some Z's before the servers came back up. They seem to have safeguarded against this a little more for the Chinese release in several ways. The first, I would assume, is that they just have better server infrastructure now. I guess the servers are not hosted where they are for our stuff, which I believe is in Texas. At least for the first game, it was all in Texas. That's going to be like the most ridiculous, incorrect speculation if somebody knows better. And I'm guessing the Chinese stuff is hosted locally to them. They, just like us, have got a head start. However, that head start is much longer than 3 days. It's a 15-day head start. Now, that something about that might sound quite sour. It might sound like, wow, they're giving all these people so much more opportunity to get ahead of the game, so much more opportunity to get a corner on the economy, get all of the decent items out there. But you have to remember that because this is just a launch in a new region, Guild Wars 2 isn't, for them, a game that has loads of game-breaking bugs like the duping bugs that ESO's had recently. And so this 15 days, yes, it will afford people a chance to get a head start, but nothing too unfair. And it also means that when the real launch comes around in China, there's going to be a really healthy spread of players already. For me, at launch, I burst through so much of the game so quickly. Once I was in the later chart areas, there was basically no one else around. It was me and one of my friends, one of my guildies. We were wandering around in essentially dead maps. I remember seeing the Claw of Jormag spawn for what has to have been one of the first times ever, and basically no one was there. It was like us and 2 other guys, and we were like, what do we do with these guns? It was awesome in some ways that we got to those areas very early, but in other ways, it sort of spoiled that real cool early game experience where there are a ton of people walking around. Everyone's always so nostalgic about that. Oh, mega servers could return the game to what it was like at launch. For me, it was only like that at launch for maybe the first few maps up to Gendaran Hills, and after that, the game was mostly empty. For people either in China, this may not be an issue. People are going to be spread out, not just across the world like that, but also people are going to be spread out across many of the dungeons, will have begun to learn these things, and the TP will also have a healthy spread of materials, and there won't be like such a massive influx on some of the early game crafting stuff, like again we saw at our launch. They haven't just extended the head start period by a lot, 3 days to 15 days, but they have also lowered the cap of players. We had 1 million people that could log in right at the start, and it crushed the servers. They have just 500,000. Those 500,000 pre-orders were entirely filled. That means that 500,000 people are playing Guild Wars 2 at the Chinese launch, and when it came around, I believe there were no lag issues. Everything was smooth as anything, and the game is rolling on just fine for now. The question is, how many more people will buy it after the head start is over? Did they lower the cap because they anticipated far less sales, or was it just a server-side thing? I'm not sure how confident we can be in the Chinese market for the game, or how relevant it is to us. For comparison, Blizzard announced with World of Warcraft that they went from 6 million subscribers to 12 million subscribers. But I don't know whether that's a particularly apt comparison, considering WoW had a very different purchase model than Guild Wars 2 does in China. According to the Wall Street Journal, Guild Wars 2 is the very first game in China to use the buy-to-play business model for MMOs. They're using the exact same thing. You buy it once, you buy a box, and then you're done for good. Most, if not all, MMOs prior to this have been either completely free-to-play games with cash shops, or games where you pay for more hours to play, which is exactly what World of Warcraft does. And so with this new kind of model, I wonder how that's going to affect sales, whether it's going to make it a roaring success, or everyone's going to think, oh no, this really isn't that great, and we'll leave it alone. I think it's obviously a good sign that they hit the 500,000 straight away, and in 15 days, I guess, or 14 days now, when the official launch comes around and everyone has the opportunity to go and play, we'll see how it goes. This idea of the subscriber model too does tap into one of the biggest things about the Chinese client that is different from ours, and they have what is called a VIP system. Actually, I think they renamed it from the VIP system after guys at NCSoft promised it wouldn't be in the game, and then it was simply renamed in the exact same thing. Basically, on the Chinese client, if you wish, you can pay about 200 gems a month, and with these 200 gems, you can give yourself essentially a subscription to Guild Wars 2. What does that subscription let you do? You can already play the game for free. Well, this gives you a bunch of services that we as North American and European players have access to anyway. For example, we can spend real-world money on gems, which we can then spend on revive orbs, which allows us to revive anywhere the hell we damn want, except World vs. World and TPVP. It's the same over in China, except you can just subscribe to a VIP program where you pay 200 gems, and not only do you get revive anywhere access, but you get a bunch of other gem store features too, like bank access, and even unique ones like teleport whenever you want to a friend of yours, which would be a pretty cool thing for them to add to the gem store for us as well, I've got to say, especially if they've managed to code it in. The VIP thing was a little bit controversial at first because it looked like it was really introducing this idea of pay to win into the Chinese client, which may have been curbed away a little now. And it also comes with an extra facet to it, which we definitely have no equivalent for over here, and that is, as you continue to subscribe as a VIP, you get unique titles and icons for your character. You guys know how currently we can get world completion. We get that little star next to our name. VIPs can also have their own unique icon, and it keeps tiering up. You can level up as a VIP. The way you level up is while you're a VIP, you get access to a totally new type of experience, and this only goes up as you complete your dailies. So if I decide, right, I'm going to subscribe as a VIP for the month of May, which has just began, I will do my daily every day through May, and that will keep giving me VIP experience. And as I level up, I get better icons and maybe even access to better services too. I believe the level cap for being a VIP is level 20. And what's very interesting about reaching level 20 is that you get access to a precursor box. In Guild Wars 2 on our side, the only way to get a precursor currently is crazy RNG. There, you can know players who barely play the game at all, you don't rate as players at all, and all of a sudden they get a precursor drop from some random thing. Or they roll in the Mystic Forge, you've spent thousands of gold rolling in Mystic Forge and never had anything come out, and your friend has just done it on his first ever combine. This happens all the time for us, and RNG is the only way to do it aside from spending inordinate amounts of money on the trading post. What we've wanted for Guild Wars 2 for a long time is precursor crafting or a precursor scavenger hunt. It doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter if it's grindy, the players want it because it's an assured way of getting a precursor without having to resort to the trading post. Well, for Chinese players, they have this. The only difference is, it's very expensive in terms of either real-world money or gems for them. It's a VIP exclusive reward once you get to level 20. No one knows quite how long it will take to get to level 20, but predictions are in the ballpark of around half a year at least, and I would expect that to be true. And once you get there, they give you an assured way of having a precursor. I must say, if this was over on NA and EU, I would be very frustrated with the implementation. If this would end up as a ReaderNet's answer to precursor scavenger hunt, there would be immense amounts of rage and screaming of pay to win. But I am still kind of envious of people playing in China now that they have this assured way of getting it. And how hard is it to farm gold for 200 gems every month? Not necessarily that bad. You can do the maths to work out, okay, if we do it fully from real world money, how much real world money does it spend you to buy gems to convert to gold to buy a precursor off the trading post right now, compared to buying gems for VIP and then waiting half a year or so? But you can't really do the comparisons. 200 gems worth of real-world money to us is not the same as 200 gems worth of real-world money to the Chinese, and it is, at the end of the day, still based on speculation how long it takes you to get to level 20. Nonetheless, as I say, I'm a little bit envious, and maybe this is a sign that ArenaNet have been looking into precursor stuff. There were obviously things that were data mined from the game quite recently, and maybe we will finally get our answer to it, perhaps in the next feature patch. Some other interesting things, it does look like the Chinese version of the game has just as many servers as our versions of the game do, over NA and EU. There are a lot of arguments that we have too many servers. Obviously now with mega servers in the game, what are they good for? They are only there for world versus world. And what is our world versus world experience like right now? There's a lot of rather dead servers with very little world versus world activity, a bunch of world versus world servers with, you know, a medium amount, lots of small ops going on, and just a couple of insanely populated world versus world dedicated servers. So people have been saying for a while for us that they need to cut down on the amount of servers just so that world versus world matchups can be a little bit better, so that there's not so many places for people to be spread out through. For the Chinese launch, at the very least, though, they have introduced just as many servers. They all have different names. Someone was posting on Reddit about these different names that I thought was quite interesting. Many are actually named after world versus world objectives. So, for example, there is a Chinese server called Spirit Hole. There's one called Dawn's Eyrie, Green Lake, Dreadful Bay, Titan Paw, and God's Sword. God's Sword as well, apparently if you translate it directly, it instead says God's Word, which is quite curious. And they've also got servers based on other things, like the human gods. There's a server for each one. You can be from the Balthazar server, or the Dwayna, Abaddon, and so forth. They've also got all the capital cities. You can be from Lion's Arch, Ratasum, Holbrak, and even the Elder Dragons. What's interesting about this is they have the regular Elder Dragons, Jormag and Primordus and so forth, but they actually have a server translated directly that is literally called Deep Sea Dragon, like a title for an unnamed named dragon they have a server for. So what happens when the story gets to a point that they reveal who the Deep Sea Dragon's real name is? What do they do then? Do they rename the server or just leave it as Deep Sea Dragon? Kind of cool, but that's basically what's going on with China, guys. It's something that's going on. I wanted to talk about it a little bit. Honestly, I think it's curious and it's fun to see what is different about that side of the game. But it's not going to impact us. No indirect way, such as the trading post or being able to mail through things. But also, I feel like now ArenaNet, on at least the NA side of things, is done. And whatever work they had to put into that launch may now be very much over. Of course, 15 days and then we have the real launch. And then we could be looking at Season 2 stuff from there on. If you guys want to see Chinese players playing the Chinese pre-launch, there is a link in the description you can click, and you'll see them messing about on their clients. You'll see all the UI changes. Obviously, the language looks different. I've barely touched on it all. There's been loads of minor changes here, there, and everywhere. And these could all be hints into things that come into Guild Wars 2 on our side in the future. Don't forget, one of the early screenshots of the Chinese betas showed the Shadow Behemoth with tons of portals all around him, and everyone was like, what's going on here? And then it turned out in the feature patch that's exactly what changed for us about the Shadow Behemoth. There could still be a lot of things that are clues to what will happen for us, and it's just a matter of watching the live streams a little bit, I guess. Anyway, there you go, guys. Let me know what you think about the Chinese beta. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow for another video.